It's never made sense for us to take someone who is truant, someone who just skipped class, and put them in incarceration.
Each year, more than 600,000 youth are admitted to juvenile detention centers. The majority of the offenses are property crimes or violating probation. In the 1990s, research indicated that the nation's juvenile detention centers were ineffective, expensive, and arbitrary.
They make kids self-identify as criminals in a way we really don't want. They give us some temporary respite from the kid running around in the community, but they put that young person back out into our community as a self-identified criminal who we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on making worse. So if we're going to do it, we better only do it for the kids who really need to be locked up.
The Annie E. Casey Foundation developed the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative to demonstrate that jurisdictions could reduce reliance on detention without sacrificing public safety, and that they could be more effective and more efficient by reducing the incidence of delinquent behavior, eliminating inappropriate or unnecessary use of secure detention, minimizing failures to appear in court, redirecting public finances to successful reform strategies, and improving conditions in secure detention facilities.
One of the best practices that's in the country today, and that is the Casey's Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. The only way that we are going to truly improve the system from the front door all the way out to the back door and back into the community is to focus on risk, so that we only are detaining those who must appropriately be detained, balancing the interest of the public safety, balancing the interest of harm to self, and balancing the interest at the front door of the risk of reappearance in court.
How do states go about building fairer, more efficient, and more effective juvenile detention systems? By bringing together key stakeholders and community partners to analyze the problems and develop solutions based upon objective data. One of the first issues to be addressed is how to decide who would or wouldn't be admitted to secure detention.
The risk assessment instrument gives points to a young person when they are delivered to detention to determine whether that young person should stay in detention or should be released.
We make these decisions now guided by a detention assessment instrument. We call it the DAI. That's what we are promoting across the country so that we're not making these kind of anecdotal, prejudiced decisions about who should be locked up and who should not be locked up. When you lock up a child, when you make that front door decision to detain a child, you are profoundly impacting that child's life and everyone else in this room's life. Because that child goes, the chances are that child is going to go deeper into the system, be further penetrated into the system, and end up in long-term confinement, and do all the things we've talked about. So we've got to be really focused on improving our decision-making about, who goes in.
One of the causes of unnecessary reliance on secure detention is the absence of effective community-based alternatives to detention that could moderate the risk that a kid poses of getting rearrested or not appearing in court. And in the JDAI sites, a continuum of program options was developed that typically included home detention, day or evening reporting centers, and some number of shelter beds for kids who didn't have a home to which they could return.
The Cook County JDAI site has partnered with WACA as a community-based alternative to juvenile detention. Partnering with community-based alternatives has helped to reduce the numbers of youth going into detention. JDAI is a local initiative that is driven by the specific circumstances of the individual jurisdictions. Because of this local focus, and because the initiative prioritizes community safety, JDAI has been endorsed by prosecutors, law enforcement officers, judges, detention administrators, county officials, and advocates all over the country.
Annie Casey's detention reform initiative has been very helpful for us in giving us the tool bag to really tear our system apart and look at it.
The daily detention population in our facility has been greatly reduced, but without a resultant compromise of community safety. In fact, just the opposite. We have the lowest rates of reoffense that we've ever had.
We've talked about the disproportionality problems that exist. I think we have done some things now that kind of acknowledge the fact that this is a problem And we in our state, we actually appointed somebody whose responsibility it was to go around and work with jurisdictions to try to reduce disproportionate impact across the system, disproportionate contact and confinement across the system.
In order to reduce racial disparities in the use of secure confinement, JDAI sites made special efforts to ensure that all detention reduction strategies were race neutral. Multnomah County, in particular, was able to demonstrate that it is possible to reduce racial disparities and the likelihood of detention through determined leadership that eliminated bias and ensured that a level playing field was created.
We have to have data-informed decision-making. We have to have all those things that we are beginning to bring and introduce into juvenile justice systems, largely initiated by the Casey Foundation efforts. There's just no question about it.